Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Jen, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Corbett.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Commissioner Thel.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening. The only thing that I might mention is that I may not take everything in order, and that because of people that are here, and they don't have to sit through everything. So, but otherwise.
Make a motion, we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appearances, Rosie Jameson, you are up. If you wouldn't mind stepping up to the mic so those at home will be able to hear you clearly, it'd be appreciated.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Commissioners and Mayor. I ask that President Liz Tolley, the Avery, comes forward. And she's already on the
Never
way.
get away from it.
I was going to go through the whole thing, saying Van and Avery.
keep going.
So here we go. Thank you so much for having the chance to allow us this opportunity in front of you as a commission. We have appreciated the partnership that we continue to be able to experience with the City of Madison, Lake Area Improvement Corporation, the members, as well as the county. You, however, have been the area that we have received funding from, and therefore we really appreciate and know the impact that you have upon our members, the community, and what we can do with the confidence that you have instilled in us and what we have been able to do thus far. So with that, I'd ask you, some of you have had an opportunity to maybe preview the narrative that was sent to you. I have forwarded to Jennifer. It has, in addition to that, a detailed budget outline of what the actual expenditures and income sources are for the Greater Madison Area Chamber that you have supported. So if you have a chance to pull that, and if not, we'll just proceed from there. As I mentioned, we continue to experience your confidence and the ability for us to further promote the community and our surroundings, as well as our attractions based on the revenues that you have provided. Mayor Lindsay and Commissioners, this budget request is for your further consideration to allow us to do the following: to upgrade our website and electronic presence and our social media strength in this area. Our other media options that we have throughout are solely generated and moved forward with the ability of people to be able to have the mobile applications to be able to access them. They can read about it, they can see it, but then they go to the internet or to a website and further information to be able to learn more. So it's the detail and the drill down that we're looking for to be able to assist them to be able to stay competitive with others that do provide that. Creating more usage on the chamber website by just our public, as well as the members, because of a more robust and enhanced capable website. Promoting us overall through billboard signage and increased table coverings and mobile signage that would allow some of our members to be able to utilize them as they go to vendor shows and when we have conferences here, something that's going to welcome people as they come to our community, as well as when they're from afar to see what Madison is like without having to go to the website because they're there in person. If I could ask you to pull the budget itself at this point. I'm going to ask you to go to a certain section, and of course it's 3 pages, but the thing that I would suggest to you at this point is to look at the general categories. When people think of the chamber, they look at us as the committees and the events that people see us do. They also see the promotions that we're involved with, the signage, the advertising. If they hear Rosie Jameson on the radio, that type of thing, that might be the obvious. But in this case, we're looking at probably the more primary aspect of our budget. If you go to the last page of the budget, is truly the operations, which is the silent partner that people don't hear and don't think about, that generates and moves forward those other 2 areas. So when you look at line 121 through 123, you see the subcategories in each one of those for the overall budget of $379,000 and some odd change. I'm asking this group to consider 23% of our projected chamber budget to be financed by the city of Madison of the $379,555 budget outlined before you. This is not only to work with the members, this is to promote Madison, to be able to have people invest in Madison and the greater Madison area. So I know the essence of time, I am just going to share with you 2010 to 2015. We increased members by 16%, investing in the community and chamber promotions through membership. We increased, at that same time, membership dues. We aren't completely dependent and aren't expecting the city to be able to enhance what we do by additional support, but to be hand in hand with increasing that support as we develop and increase our capabilities and promotions. 42% is what we have increased over that same period of time, 2010 to 2015. We need and are in a position where we must be competitive because other folks are doing much of the same with larger staffs and more resources. So for us to be able to funnel channel our resources and to be able to enhance our website and our overall capability with trusted staff that members have confidence in addition to having the kinds of resources electronically that we need to be able to make that happen is where we're asking for your help. So against that, $379,000, I'm asking for $87,000 back to the chamber. Within that budget, again, it's 23%. The primary area, as I've come to you before last year, and that was to secure a prominent billboard location between 29 and 19 to access the main thoroughfare of I-90 because the visitor and traffic count on I-90 is almost double that of I-29 through that area based on Lamar and Avery billboard signage that we have worked with. The cost is going to depend upon whether it's illuminated, whether it has which exits, and so forth. So you can appreciate that there's more that would see by 29 compared to by 19 compared to by 81. But the westbound traffic is what we're looking for at this point in time with a left or right-hand read, more particulars than what we need to go into. But one thing that the analyst of the State of South Dakota Tourism Department provided to me, the strategic analyst said that there are $290 that are generated by the average visitor into the state of South Dakota and within the state of South Dakota. If you add to that their average night stay are 3 nights at a given venue or given area, you can see the tax revenue and the potential that could create. So we're looking at having a lion's share of that and not to miss our capability, our options for that resource that's there and that revenue that could be generated in Madison. On the second page that I had sent to you on the narrative, it talks about $490 as a part of the Chamber Master website platform, and we do have a future prototype of that platform that I'd like to show you at this point in time, if I can get my papers figured out here. Liz, could you help me with that, please? Thank you. We have developed and moved forward into a Pro version 9, which is the upper level of the Chamber Master platform that we had asked you for database capabilities. The database that we currently work with is a $3,120 amount, and this is augmented to get this website status to an additional $490, and that's a part of that $7,000 increase from $80,000 to $87,000 from last year to this year. Now, the billboard that we would potentially project out there and that we currently have on I-29, if you have a website that they go to that isn't going to be able to be powerful enough and interactive and be supported by mobile apps, which currently our platform does not, they will discontinue their search and look elsewhere. So that's why we're also requesting the support. In addition, because of the additional involvement and the increase in membership and other services that the community is expecting from the chamber, and hopefully we've been delivering satisfactorily, we have moved from 20 to 25 hours a week for that part-time assistant that we have been filling. And that is currently filled with a person, and we're very, very happy with what she's able to do along with the 2 full-time support staff. So with this in mind, your chamber has been positioned to be able to market, promote us, but we need those additional resources and your assistance to be able to further promote us and move us into the market share that we would need in Madison to be able to compete with our fellow partners in chamber and to promote our attractions and to generate the tax revenue for the community as well as the Lake County area. I've listed for you return on investments. I won't belabor those because of the time, but if any of you have any kind of questions that you feel may be of benefit, to ask me at this time, I stand ready to do that, or ask me at any point as you are contemplating this budget request to be able to see what I could be able to answer for you. Not only is it imperative for us to be able to continue to move forward, but it is the only way that we can and will be able to continue to proceed and move in the direction that we want to help support the progressive Madison that you've provided to us thus far. So without further comment, I entertain any questions if you have at this point, or...
Liz, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Mayor Lindsay. I just wanted to add that I'm a lifelong resident of the area. It's been a privilege to serve on the chamber board, to watch Madison grow, to help them grow. We will be planning a strategic planning session for our chamber board in the fall. And one of the things that really talked about was how do we promote ourselves for today's world. Using technology is so important, and that's key to be able to get the word out there. I know many of you have probably taken vacations and traveled, and as you do so, you pull out your phone to see where is the nearest restaurant, where can I go to, to stay, and those types of things. So we need to be able to have that technology available to promote Madison, so it's very important. So again, we appreciate your support in the past, and hopefully you'll continue to support the chamber and help grow together. So thank you.
Very good. Anyone have any questions?
Just set up a Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon Go, exactly.
Kelly?
Rosie, in the beginning of your dissertation, your explanation to us, you mentioned the signage issue, I-90 compared to,
I-29.
can you give us that again, just what you stated?
What we have been given from Avery Outdoors and Lamar Signage is traffic counts that they say are basically weekly traffic counts. In other words, who has a visual option to see it? It's higher if it's a right-hand read, lower if it's a left-hand read, illumination or not. Okay, so that's kind of a given. Then, and I can provide you all these details, but in addition to that, there are more that are trafficking east-westbound compared to north-south. And I think that we probably know that because Interstate 90 is the longest road in the country. Obviously, therefore we have more people on it, and during certain periods of the year, it is definitely more utilized. That's part of that. In addition, it will change the number of exits away you get from the largest populated area. So in other words, from Sioux Falls, it reduces because of the commuters, okay, that are no longer on that road. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. In addition, I wanted to share with you, I did just drop for you a copy of the upcoming activity that all of you, or many of you, according to Roxy, have already signed off on, and we appreciate your doing that for us to be able to have an even more fun-filled event for you. And your most recent chamber newsletter is there as well. Last but not least, I will share that you have a copy of the prototype of the website for the Greater Madison Area Chamber. And as soon as we're ready to go, if indeed you have access to one of the upcoming billboards that are available, that website will be ready hand in hand.
Other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
With that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I see Julie is back there.
Good evening.
It is a beautiful evening
Well, thanks for having us.
in the air conditioning.
This is Jeff Boone, President of the Board. First, I'll just give you a quick recap of my quarterly report and the budget. First Line Funding Group, as you have seen, they're working on their building. It's going very well. They're planning to move in the middle of August, so so that's gonna leave a vacancy in our tech center. They currently occupy about 3/4 of the building, so 1/4 of the building will still be DSU. So we're looking for a tenant, but I think we're gonna kind of take some time and just figure out a few things in the tech center and kind of decide what we're gonna do before we actually lease it out, but that will be available soon. We've had 4 sessions of ESL classes, and we took a break from that this summer. We would like to start it again in the fall. We're not sure about the future because our plan was, we had hoped to give it to the Career Learning Center, but they are now going to be closing, so we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do, if we're gonna just take that on for another year. Our website, we've been working on our website, it's almost complete. We're excited about the additional housing in town that will be happening just south of the latest townhomes. We are gonna be kicking off the capital campaign, which we'll hear more about later, but in the September timeframe. And then Jen always gets our audit. She'll see on the audit this year that we owned the building that Manitou was in, the one on 821 Southwest First Street, and that was a lease to own building, and they now, as of June 30th, own that building, so that'll be coming off our inventory. So, and we're just busy with inquiries and other projects, so that's kind of our quarterly update. Members on our board is there every month, and I see them in between, so maybe those you guys in. If you ever have any questions, of course, you know you can always. Anything on the quarterly report?
That's great, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and now you got my letter for the budget request. As you know, that we have 2 budget requests that we asked for from the city. We are asking again for $140,000 for our current budget. As you know, costs go up every year, and we have really tried to remain fiscally responsible and prudent in our spending. This will be the same amount that we've asked for now for the 11th year. We're not asking for additional money. So, and I come here quarterly, so you kind of know what the LLC is doing. Then our second request would be, we did a capital campaign in the year of 2012, and this was a 5-year request that they asked for at that time from you, and this would be the 5th year of that request, because it was a 5-year request, so this is the 5th request of 5 years, and that's for $120,000. And if you'll recall, they had 2 key points, which was business development and then retail development and marketing. And so those were kind of the points that we hit on. I think we're very privileged to have a lot of good things happening in Madison. We've seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of things that we're involved in and some that we're not involved in. And we like to think that if all things are happening positive on our end, then the rising tide lifts all boats, and then other good things are happening. So that's pretty much our kind of request. And do you have anything you want to add?
I really don't. I don't really support, I think we have a great board, and, as Julie mentioned, our, 11th year of not asking for any more than what we, did, and I think we're streamlining our operation. We watch our costs very closely, and, a lot of the funds that we use, come from other places too, so, we appreciate very much what you guys do. Without you, we could not function, so thank you very much.
It's about 26-27% of our budget that comes from city. The rest of it is for private businesses and individuals in our community is the majority of our funding.
Questions at all?
Well, it's nice to always have some news or something to update us on when you come. That's a good sign, so appreciate that.
Thanks.
Kind of like the chamber being our marketing arm. Obviously, we're in the city's in the business of providing government services, and we don't typically get into that marketing, and that's why we have the chamber. It's hard for us all to actively recruit businesses and handle all of those inquiries, and some of them are, you might handhold them for 2 years and boom, they select another state, or another city, and that's the way it goes. But building off of that, or you may talk to somebody and 2 years later they come back around and say, okay, yep, now we're ready to come here. And as a city and as commissioners, we don't have the time and abilities to do that. So it's great to have people that are passionate about it and really strive to make it happen and happen right.
And we've seen the benefit in our industrial park out there with the businesses that we've been able to bring in, and then also with the businesses that have moved into where other businesses have closed. So it keeps Madison moving. That's the exciting thing, so.
We haven't seen as many businesses like from out of state want to come in state lately. I don't know if it's just kind of the way the economy is. You don't see as many requests.
It's an election year.
Yeah, it could be. We have one that was moving forward quite quickly, and they decided to hold off until after the election, because they were doing some things with the Department of Energy and they didn't know what the new president was gonna do, so that's when we will pick up after the election, so. We're still having, this is a big project, and we're still having monthly calls with this, prospect, but they kind of stepped back, so.
I think you're right with the economy too. I mean, our sales tax numbers are not as healthy as we would like them to be, and going into the budget season, it just makes us
Yeah.
smile a little bit more.
Yeah.
Other questions? Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay. Mark Knowles is here with the Condrey and Associates. Very nice, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you in the audience that are unfamiliar, this is something that the commission has requested and has paid for, and so this is their first report to us.
So thank you, Mayor. My name is Mark Knowles, and I'm a principal consultant with Condrey Associates, and my task tonight is to give you the final report on our work and our progress toward building the classification and compensation recommendation. And so you have a report here. I'll try not to skim over too fast. There's a lot of information. And as you go back and you read that and have questions, please feel free to pose those. And any questions here this evening, feel free to interrupt me anytime that you'd like to do so, and I'll try to answer those. The document itself, on section 1, page 1, it talks about really what you asked us to do. It's not something common. About every 10 years on average, local governments like to step in and take a look at their classification and pay system. And you've done that, and you've asked us to take a look at your existing one and then make any recommendations to improve that. We were to do that by doing a salary, collection of salary information, salary data, and then also to come back with a recommended plan that's based on job analysis, job evaluation, and wage survey data. So not just purely a market analysis, but also one built around an organized classification method. We use the factor evaluation system. It's the foundation of public personnel management in the United States. It's not something uncommon. It's in the public realm. It's not something proprietary. Essentially, there's 10 factors that are associated with each job, and each of those factors have specific levels. Those levels are assigned points, and as we go through, we rate every single job based on that system, and we add up those points, and it produces a grading structure for your organization. It's widely accepted methodology. To gather the information that we needed in order to produce that plan, by first coming on site, and we did an orientation session where I talked to all your employees. Everybody was invited to come in, and all the management as well. We passed out a questionnaire. We explained how to complete the questionnaire. Every employee completed the questionnaire for us, talking about their job. It was a structured format. The document itself has been around for multiple decades. It's knit together information for the system. That was then reviewed by your department managers, and particularly a just 2-level review, and then passed along to us. And we came back on site after reviewing those and conducted interviews. And we interviewed 100% of full-time employees. So anyone who wanted to be interviewed was allowed to talk with us. And we brought in subject matter experts who talked with those individuals. They may not have done that particular job, but have been around with that job and should have been able to understand what the employee was talking about with their position, and we can translate that into the FES system. We then took that information and wrote new job descriptions for you, which you'll have after I leave here this evening, and they're still in progress, but they'll be produced for your organization. The information itself was then used to go out and do a salary study for you. And you'll see on page 3 here a list of organizations that responded to your survey. We did ask more. We had a high degree of response, but they are listed here for you. And you'll see those in your region. A very good, thorough survey for your marketplace. That information was then also tested against the Bureau of Labor Statistics from your private sector organizations. They traditionally would not respond to a salary survey from a government type of a review like this. but they are required to report to the Bureau of Labor Statistics when they do payroll, so we're able to capture that data that way. And we use that information just to verify in the process. That allowed us to come back and produce a plan. And so as I walk through here, I'll show you that we talk about the classification system analysis and FES and those 10 factors, and they're listed here, but just quickly, the knowledge required for the position, supervisory controls, guidelines, complexity, the scope and effect, what happens when you do your job, what happens when you don't do your job, the personal contacts, why you come in contact with individuals, physical demands, and your work environment, and then any supervisory and management responsibilities of that individual position. It applies uniformly within every position. And within those factors, the levels, for example, knowledge required to do a job, from having no knowledge coming into a job all the way up to potentially a master's level of experience, someone's 7-10 years plus experience to do a job. And those levels are assigned points. It's a weighted system, which means that certain factors gain more or influence more. Knowledge required to do a job is the most important part of that. It's 36% of the total grade for a job. We use that, and you'll see on page 10 a breakdown of recommended grades for each position within your organization that we define. And you'll see that grouped together by grades. First is grouped by departments, and the second grouping is by individual grades on page 12. So for example, I'll just pull out one at random, but the finance assistant position, for example, is labeled as finance 3 on page 10. That FIN/3 is just a way to refer to it in your personnel documents. It's a reference tool for your staff. But you have a title that's assigned to the job, and then the grade of 12, okay? And it's classified that way. And we also did the FLSA grade under the new requirements that will come with the new rules in 2017. So in N, there would be that it's not exempt, or E would be exempt. Every single position classified, and then employees are placed into those positions, okay? And we'll refer back to that in just a minute. We took the information from the salary study. Essentially, we went out and we did a benchmark survey, and you'll see on the last page of your report a list of those jobs that we were able to gather data. This is accepted methodology where you take the benchmark positions. Those are the positions that are common within all the cities that you looked at, or organizations that you looked at. And we asked them some specific information, such as what's the minimum that you paid an employee? What are you actually paying somebody today? And what's the most that you're willing to pay? What's the full compensation measure? We take those 3 pieces of data and we look at that from a mean standpoint. Mean, of course, is the average of the responses, and then also from a median standpoint. The median is just simply the midpoint. Half are paying more, half are paying below. And those 2 statistics, along with in a number of different ways, allows us to produce a market by looking at an average of the averages of the organizations. And you'll look on page 6 and page 7. We're providing you 2 recommended pay plans. Page 6 is 103% of your market. You're slightly ahead of other organizations, but as you may understand, you're surveying today, and you're probably looking at next year. So we want to show you something slightly ahead of where that average of the average is at. Doesn't mean it's the most expensive plan or ahead of or leading by any means. It just means that this is a plan would be putting you forward in a competitive position for the FY 2017, FY 2018. And then on page 7, that's 100% of the. Make sure I said this correctly. I'm sorry, I did that. 103% on A, 100% on A. Okay. So that is currently at 100%. So if we were to implement this plan, for example, a year from now, it could be behind where the market's at. Okay. But we do want to provide you where the organization's at. And these are just simply base salaries. When you're looking at compensation, when you look at your total compensation, or your total compensation measure, that would include things such as benefits and others. That's not included in our information or analysis. Okay? So as we go through in our recommendations, and you were to implement these, then we have to provide to you, of course, a cost of implementation. And I want to show you how we calculate that. So essentially, let's take that finance assistant, for example, and we have that at grade 12. We're coming back with a recommend, and I'm going to just stay with table 2A, but the same analysis will apply to either one of these tables. In Table 2A, grade 12, and let's just assume that your current employee in that position, or it could be multiple people, but one's making $34,500 a year. We would bring that position up to at least the minimum level in that, for that pay classification. So that would be $36,771. So the difference between that number and the lower number, the actual number, is the cost of implementation, the first level. And let's just say, for example, that another employee in that same classification is making $40,590 a year. Okay? And then what we would do then, we'd step out in this proposed step plan to the next level above that. We would never step below where they're currently making and place them on the scale. So no, there's no takeaway in this kind of a plan. So then we would put that individual on at, for example, on 12F, and that would be $41,604. So the difference between that, once again, their actual now and the new rate would be your cost of implementation. So if you look on page 9, we calculate that for you.
Even if it's a $1 difference?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And that first cost is in column, the first column there, classification changes. So if you were to choose Plan A at 103%, it would be 4.7% of your payroll. If you were to choose Plan B, 100%, it would be 3.72% of your payroll. Okay. And if that was all that you would do, you'd make people happy probably till you get them on the plan. Then what would happen is those individuals that you sort of put them in, when you put them on the plan, come day one when you hire a new person, you could be potentially hiring them, and most likely be hiring them at the starting wage, somebody potentially has been here for years. So that there's issues that we refer to as a job pay compression. And sometimes it end up with dissatisfied employees if that should happen. So there is a one-time recommendation. Anytime you do a plan like this, it's the best practice recommendation that you do an equity adjustment to try to alleviate some of that. And so we've given you two options here. We call it, that's where we come up with the first level here and then a modified level. And essentially what we're suggesting is on the first one, if you have between 1 and 3 years of current service, and we basically pull a methodology we can use and apply it uniformly. It doesn't mean that every single employee will receive that. That's a decision. That's up to the management of the organization and how you choose. But we just applied it uniformly because there could be other issues related to that, such as performance and things that you may choose not to do that. But if you applied it uniformly, 1 to 3 years, there would be a 1-step increase. 4 to 6 years, a 2-step, and then a 3-step for 7 or more years. Okay, and I should point out, I caught this earlier, but it says they're 3016, but this would be employees from as of December 31st, 2016. That was a typo there. I didn't catch it. So, for example, that same employee who is making $40,590, let's say that person has been here for 8 years. Okay, so we place them on the scale at that first level. It goes up at H, 12. So 1 step up, and then we step them up 3 different steps. Okay? And so the cost of that for every employee, treating them the exact same way, is your equity adjustment cost. And then you can see here that number steps up to 6.21% of payroll for Plan A. So then we step back and say potentially that might be something that you might want to conserve with, and we move back to a modified version where you drop that top one, and then for essentially anybody above 4 years would just get 2. Okay? So that's a way, and so as you work through your budget process, that's ways that you can accommodate any changes in your process. So you see a total cost here can range from roughly 11% to roughly 7.5% or 8%. The total cost of implementation. And so there's a range there. And so as you work through your budget, if you were to make any sort of adjustments, you want to at least do your classification changes in order to make sure you're close to the market, as close as possible as you're able to get. And then you may want to look at your equity adjustment in order to make any sort of monetary changes. That's just a sort of a way you want to approach that. You want to at least get everybody at that competitive level. It's of course a lot of information, and I think I'll stop there because I'm starting to see some great looks and see if I can try to answer any questions.
Hey, anyone have any questions?
When you're talking about competitive levels, and I know we had the survey from all these other towns, in your appendix C, that's from other, this is just from the other towns, right? Not private industry, it's all city governments.
That's correct, it's
municipalities.
just city government.
Okay,
It's just the government that I shouldn't say city, because you did have some
yeah, we had,
better water systems
Yeah.
and I would
Have
also
a
point out
control.
that not every city or not every, for example, not every municipal utility is reported for every single position. They obviously may not have a police officer,
Right.
so then they will not be in there, so it's there. And then at least, they would have reported at least two, we would have responses from at least two before I place them in the study for validation purposes.
okay.
I've been doing this about 29 years. You have a very good salary study here. You've got a large top list, a good benchmarking group, and you have good responses.
So budget perspective, we're looking at anything from 352,000 to as low as $260,000 impact.
Yes, sir. Under these plans, this is the first plans that we present.
Other questions? And granted, and that in order to put this into perspective, and that, do you have the positions in that in a separate document and that has been presented or will be presented to us that shows these calculations and these placements?
Yes, sir. You'll have a list of all the job, and you have the job descriptions.
Okay,
Then employees placed in those jobs. And then the FES grading analysis is provided after I leave here typically. It'll be in about a month.
Okay, and
That's the piece.
and I guess the thing that I'm looking for in my question is, to come up with these, you've taken the current employees and said, okay, you know, if you go in this particular plan, this person is here and moves to here, and this one's here and moves to here, and this is here? Or is that something that we have to continue to do as on an individual basis, and that from the charts that you've provided?
In order to calculate the cost of implementation, we took every single employee.
Okay.
And did what ifs. And that model has been built so that if you were to ask us to do another model, that we could provide that to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to throw out another question, and that, and I know there's some employees in the background that might not like this. Did you find in any particular instance in that someone who was in a classification that actually went down instead of up?
Your current system wasn't as defined, so that's a difficult question to answer.
Okay.
Because we basically classified every single position new, and we placed individuals in there. Now, no one's compensation went down.
Okay,
And
that was kind of my
No
question.
one's compensation. And
Yeah.
then you potentially may have had individuals who may have been topped out. That is basically, they're at the full compensation
Mhm.
measure. I don't think that occurred here, but it could.
Okay.
Or they'd be very close to it. If that was to happen, once again, they would stay there. We would not have taken anything away from that employee.
Mhm. Okay, you answered my question.
That's very rare.
So-
We do. So,
Yeah, well, you know, when you do these things, sometimes things pop up and that you don't anticipate, so, you know, so.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have questions? Okay.
Thank you. Need
Thank
to spend
you.
some
Well,
time
thank
looking
you.
at it.
If
I-
has
Thank
anything
you.
pop up and
Bob,
you
did you have a
questions,
question?
No.
Okay.
We're here to help you. We have a year
Mhm.
worth of implementation, but once again, we've been working with a lot of cities in this area for decades, so
Mhm.
we're here to assist you as you go forward.
And that was one of the reasons why your group was chosen, is because you have done other towns in our area, and that they were very satisfied with the results.
Just
So,
left Mitchell this afternoon. So
Mhm. Very good.
Very
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. Okay, at this point in time, on that, I'm going to move down to new business, and that, under number 1, discuss the South Dakota DOT approved Washington Avenue closure and reconstruction project, and that before Adam falls asleep over there.
Get back to work.
So,
I guess, yeah, I'm Adam Dahlside, I'm the CNR contracting, general contractor out on the project. I think everybody where it's at, Highway 34. I guess here to kind of just inform everybody about closing Washington Highway 34 for southbound. We had to go away from the original plans, phasing, due to some constructability issues and safety. I guess my plan is, hopefully at the end of this week, Friday, I'll shut down, I'll have traffic flopped onto the new side, the north half up to McDonald's, just past McDonald's. And then I'm gonna start to remove the southeast quadrant. And after I do that, I'll have traffic still on the west half of the intersection, so I'll still be able to go north-south. Until there's a temporary hydrant on the east side, I gotta run that water main south to the project limits. And then after I do that, I will run 3 36-inch arch from that box culvert running west to where I have traffic running north and south. At that point, I'm gonna shut the intersection down for 3 days. And then I will install the sewer from south to north. And then everything will, after I get that sewer in, that storm will continue, those three runs of 36-inch arch, to get on the west side of Washington. And everything will follow with water services, sewer services, and there's one more storm crossing to finish up the south side of 34 on Washington. And that's tentatively, hopefully weather dependent, will be August 1st.
And on the west side there, southwest side, there's a big box collection, what's the proper term for that? Collection box, and that those three will collect into. So that's part of the reason, and that is because it's gonna be a massive hole in that to be able to put those containment pieces into before they can continue on westward, so.
I'm Greg Alberg with
Yes.
the DOT, and as Adam has pointed out, there are some major constructability issues involved here. And it is not our, or was not our original intent to close the intersection, but recognizing the difficulty of what we have to do here, it seemed to be a proper thing to do. The sanitary sewer on this end of town is extremely deep. It's close to 15 feet down. And that in itself creates a lot of problems because we have a huge hole and it's a pretty confined space if you're trying to build it one quadrant at a time. We're able to do that on the north side, but on the south side, we carry that further to the south and connect back up with the existing system. By allowing the contractor to close it, it does provide for a more efficient timeline to complete the work and lessen the impact to the motorists of Madison and people coming through Madison. So the biggest reason that we're here today is to inform the group and let them know what's coming up so that when it does happen, everybody is aware, so when your phone rings, you'll be more informed and can pass that information along. We will be issuing some press releases when we get closer to doing this as well, so you'll probably see some news in the paper and on the radio as well. So, does anybody have any questions?
And then Adam, have you worked with Chad and Fred and that on the detour routes and that for the traffic going north and south?
Not quite yet, no.
Okay. Just FYI, and that, we had some closures and that on North Washington, that for DSU, and asked them to put up detour signs. They did a nice job. We didn't have any issues, and so, I'm confident you guys will get things worked out and that so traffic can continue to flow around it and keep moving and it won't stall everybody like a 3-day blizzard. So,
Or are you
Questions?
thinking that the very next road would be by the car wash? So that one would be open and maintained all the time? You know, so it's like only one block off?
I'm not
Or
so
are you
sure
going to
that that's,
detour 'em all the way down to Egan, or?
no, I'd say detour them
detour
one
'em,
block
just
east,
go
then they can
to
go
the
straight
east
north.
and then back around?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Because they'll be
And-
taking up the concrete going west still.
And I guess I would almost rather, I mean, if you need 4 days, take 4 days, get it done right.
And safely.
Let's dig a big as hole as what you need to move around and work down there, and, you know, I would rather, you know, take your 3 days, let's do it right, cause it'll be there for 40 years, so.
See, and I want him to do it right too, because it's my sewer line.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many
One-
comments I could make to that, Mayor, but.
One other question, could you work with the Public Works Department and try to get that one block cleaned up, because it's kind of, rough concrete surface, and get some blacktop laid in there so the residents there don't hear all that for that, because there's gonna be a lot of extra traffic there. And would that be possible to get a couple loads of hot mix and
Which street
And-
are you on, Bob?
First Street, the concrete
First Street
From-
going east,
from Washington to Lincoln?
Lincoln?
Yep. It's something that you could work with Public Works and see if we could get that done. Because it is kind of a broke-up street. Don't expect you to put a lot of money into it, but
First road south of the highway, the detour goes east, that's a concrete, it's pretty rough shape.
You guys can look at it.
I was gonna, that's what
look
I
at
was
it
saying.
and
you can
communicate
do.
with
Yep.
Chad and Fred
And
and
Fred, and
see what you guys can come up with.
Okay. And I know, obviously, you guys work with Chad, we got the chiefs in the audience, so he knows it's gonna happen, and from the public safety perspective, Randy, our fire chief, I mean, him and the boys, if there's a fire, they'll get to it, so.
Okay. Will you contact dispatch then too, 911 dispatch then as well? Let them know of the closure and such, okay. Maybe one last question, were you thinking of putting a minor detour signing just around the project, or not as part of this? What were you thinking?
I would request that from the city, and that from the standpoint that people coming into town that are not familiar with the town would then really be, at a disadvantage of trying to figure out how to get where they're going, because if they go west and then try to turn north and can't get across, so it would be preferred to have a defined detour for traffic, so that it moves smoothly.
That's probably some more discussion will be had on that. This is kind of.
Sounds great.
This happened quick.
Yes.
At the end of last week. so.
Yep. And FYI, I visited with Adam quite a bit on it, so at least I was familiar with, the plans, so.
Other than a few phone calls and things like that, I mean, I think the city is encouraged and by the work,
Mhm.
and, I think it's going, from my perspective, about as smooth as, we know it's a mess, I mean, but from our perspective, in working with Chad, and for the city to be able to replace a lot of those lines and those pipes, and Mayor's talked about, I don't know, you probably have pictures of some of the stuff that they've taken out, and I know our electrical department's gotta be happy about that, our water department, Public Works is, so I'm hoping that part of it's working okay. I haven't heard that it's not between the DOT, and I know we're
It's been
kinda
good.
tagging along your contract, and what a great way to do that. I mean, it's the right way to do it.
Definitely.
What's the date of the big hole again?
August
1, 2,
4th.
3.
August 1?
Yep. Is the start of it.
All right.
I was thinking the 28th of July, but I thought that.
Miracle Treat Day is what he's getting at, so, for those that haven't, put that on their
Good
calendar
thinking.
yet.
We'd plan ahead.
Yes.
Thanks for working with that
Yes.
project too.
Yeah, that project's working well too, so. All right, no other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, move back up to, under appearances, acknowledge the Madison Municipal Airport Board meeting minutes of May 17th. We have Morris and Chad. Either one of you want to address that?
I can say a few things unless Morris,
Yeah, go for it.
one of the main reasons that this is in here is there's, at that meeting, the airport board discussed the capital improvement plan, the CIP. That is the next agenda item, and so I think we all just wanted you to be aware that that was discussed by them, and acknowledged by them. I don't know if they formally recommended approval or any such thing, but they're aware of the ebbs and flows that have been coming through the project with the changes in wetland analysis and drainage in the design process and so on. So that's the main thing that's covered in that item. And I can do item by item, or I can
Well,
kind of talk about all.
we just need to acknowledge that they're there. We could actually do all three of them in one acknowledgement.
Okay.
So if you want to move on to number 5?
Sure. Basically, the capital improvement plan, this helps Jen, among others, to determine what the funding budget requests will be for 2017, but it also, again, keeps up this moving target, so to speak, that keeps having as the project ebbs and flows. For example, there was early on, I think the last version of this, we planned to buy all the wetland credits at one time, but due to some various changes, and some of which are FAA changes they request or funding limitations, we're forced to break it into smaller pieces, and that's an easier one to do. And continuing on with that example, those wetland credits are for to offset the wetlands being mitigated on the east side of the main runway, whereas in 2017 we'll purchase some wetland credit mitigation. Those would be ones on the west side where the parallel taxiway will ultimately be. So it's sort of trying to fit the project scopes within the budgets available. That's probably the biggest part that has been breaking this up into pieces. And so in the end, at the end of the day, the idea is we're still going to have a parallel taxiway and all the wetlands will be mitigated and so on. And then a little bit farther down, the airport hangar and apron and such like that. But the most immediate and the projects at hand are the wetlands mitigation, the purchasing of the credits, and then the design and construction of the parallel taxiway. So I would just say that regarding item number 5. And then as far as item number 6, I had asked KLJ to sort of lay out the next most immediate steps within the next 2 months really of all the different items that will have to be coordinated as this plan moves from approval for bid letting, and then there's a grant pre-application that has to be submitted to FAA, and then we have to go through a bid opening process. Ultimately, once we get the bids, the grant pre-application will have to be finalized. Then, of course, you'll review the bids, and at the same time you review the bids at or about that time, you'll also look at the other costs for the projects, which will be KLJ's costs for administering the construction, the wetland bank costs that'll involve David Jenks to review and assure that that meets all the particular legal standards and its agreement, and so on. So, and all these things, we're going to try to coordinate that with the airport board so they get a preview of it before the bids come to you and they can make recommendations and so on. But I won't go through these point by point unless you want me to, but it sort of lays it out in 11 bullets, I believe he has on here on this memo that KLJ provided to us, dated July 12th. So with that, Those are those three acknowledged items, and I can try to answer any questions if you want, if there are any on it. Obviously, this goes hand in hand with an item later down in the agenda where you're being asked to approve the plans and specifications and authorize the bid advertisement.
Do you have anything to add to it, to that at this point, Morris?
No, you just brought up that the FAA is, it's not our, the FAA is broken up there, the money they're giving us, and that's why it's taking longer and longer. Instead of just doing it all at once like we planned. They're breaking it up, so fortunately we have to.
Okay. Any questions at this point? Do we have a motion to
In the
just
minutes here-
acknowledge?
In the minutes, it says that Doug Huntross is going to bring the emergency plan to the city commission. Has he done that?
Yes, he is.
He did? Okay.
He has not brought the
He's
final.
He's got a couple more things to
Yeah.
update in it, but he has, met with us and he's got a couple.
But, no. He hasn't given a formal
No, he
presentation to
hasn't
us yet.
given a formal thing.
But he has worked on it and has
Yeah.
been talking with the, with the airport board and that. So it is still in transition, but he has not made the formal presentation to the city commission yet, no.
This was back in May, and it said in 2 weeks, so that's the only reason why I was asking.
No, you're
No,
fine,
he's
but no,
got
he
a couple
hasn't been here
more
yet.
things to.
That turned out to be a little more cumbersome than he anticipated as well, in getting things to not only meet the emergency management, but also meet the FAA requirements and regulations, so. And he and Randy and Morris and Chad have been working on that quite extensively. So, do we have,
Can I ask for an acknowledgement for 2 of the items together? Let's do 4 and 5 together.
Okay.
The minutes and then the actual CIP, the whole plan.
number 6?
Yep,
Okay.
please.
If someone would want to make a motion to acknowledge the minutes and the CIP.
I
Number
make a
4 and 5.
motion, we,
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those, sorry, Bob. All
That's
those in
fine.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Bob, would you like to make a motion for number 6?
yeah, I'll make a motion, we acknowledge municipal airport AIP 3-46-0029-013 2616 bidding schedule.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there anything that anyone wants to remove from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under old business, and that I've asked Chad to give us an update on the North Armory elevation masonry work.
Okay, yes, thank you. We talked last week in the budget session about the armory condition, and actually back in April, you approved to proceed with Kroger Masonry to apply a sealer on the armory. We looked into it right after that to verify with some assistance of Banner, who has some more experience in this. Is this the right investment? Is this the right thing to do? They had cautioned us on that and actually asked that it might be prudent to also look at full brick replacements for the bricks that are failing and such, just out of the abundance of caution and one perspective that may be the most appropriate way to proceed aesthetically and otherwise. So we did look into that, and we sort of have been researching some things until this time. And one of the items we did was we asked Kroger, we did a brick count of all the bricks on the north face. Now we're talking of all the ones where the faces are popped off of the brick, and we gave that count to Kroger and said, what would your cost be to do that? And that came in at about $125,000. As you recall, it was about $35,000 just to place this sealer on. And so we sort of wanted to get that information to you. You heard it last week, and after we had some feedback in the budget meeting, we wanted to look into, do we just proceed? How should we go? So I did some additional checking of some reference of this particular product, and also talked to some testing labs for brick testing, and some of the manufacturer and the supplier and so on. and actually talked to some folks Huron Medical Center, Huron Elementary School, and a couple others where we've heard this product was applied, and everybody we've talked to said this has worked well for them. It's been a good product. Now, it's a different application. Most of these were placed on new structures versus an old structure. And that was a little bit of a concern and such. The other concern that came up was prevents the water from coming in from the outside, but we wanted to make sure it doesn't also prevent water from escaping from the inside. We had some dialogue with some of these people who are more experts in the field, and long story short, they believe that this is an appropriate product. It will let that water migrate, and it is an appropriate investment right now. I would recommend proceeding with it. Some might call it a Band-Aid, but I think it's a prudent investment because it's going to protect us. We hope it's going to keep more faces from popping off and prevent those moisture issues, or prevent that moisture from causing issues on the inside. Right now, we don't really have issues on the inside, and we kind of want to keep it that way. This sealer can last, 10 years or so, or more even, before we have to put in another coat on. By then, we don't know what will happen. We'll at least be able to monitor and see, has it at least stopped the brick damage, the faces from being popped off, and has it maintained our level of moisture prevention, so to speak, coming into the inside. So, it is a significant investment. You already did approve it in April. I guess we could say we vetted it much more now. It's still going to look the same. Aesthetically, it's not going to look like a new building. If you go look at the north face, you'll see that it's kind of ugly looking, right? And it's not going to fix those brick that the faces again have already popped off. So maybe if we're going to look at 50 more years of life, maybe someday you do have to put in the 125 or whatever that price is at the time to replace those bricks. But right now I think we can buy some time by just putting this on.
And Chad, myself, and Bob were up there and leaned over the edge, looked over, took a number of pictures. And in the process, in that, if we were to replace the bricks in that at the 140, that did not include the ceiling.
Correct.
And so that would just replace some of them that had the faces that already popped off, but then the moisture would get in and we'd have more popping off next year. So it did not look like the most advantageous way to spend dollars, where sealing it looked like the better investment, because even though there's some with the faces popped off, we stood at the street and we looked at it and I said, okay, who's going to tell me that brick should have been replaced, that one, or this one over here? It's the character of the building. And so we felt that moving forward with what we had already budgeted and sealing it up to maintain what we have for the next decade, and that is probably the most prudent and best method to go with. So,
We'd be better off putting in $125,000 in a reserve, because we're gonna have to replace that building at some point.
mhm. So anyway, I had asked Chad to give the commission, I'd asked Chad to give a commission an update since the discussion last was, banners concerns and the research and that he's done in between, so.
And this would be the whole north side?
Correct.
Seal the whole north side?
Seal the whole north side, yes.
There was part of that scope, that
Mhm.
35,000 that you saw, that proposal, there will be some brick replaced, because there are some broken brick now, but it won't be wholesale, like I've described it.
But there also may be a little bit of sealing in that, if you look at the very tip top of the west side, we have, what would you call that, the cap that's up there? It's sandstone?
It's just a limestone, it's probably a limestone.
Okay.
looking cap, I
There
believe.
are some pieces in that have fallen off from there, and that is over the sidewalk. And so during that time period, in that, I would really like to see that sealed as well, just to prevent more pieces from popping loose. We've already had one fall. When we were up there, there's a loose one. Chad just picked it up. It wasn't even attached. It was just sitting there ready to fall. And that would definitely make an impression on someone if they were walking under it.
Yeah, those are general maintenance items
Yes.
for safety that will
Yes.
address some other minor. I don't anticipate that would greatly affect the
No,
the
no,
35,
no.
5 or whatever that was.
But you could tell that capstone needed to be sealed as well.
We've already approved this in April,
We
right?
have,
Yeah, there's
yes.
no action.
Nope,
And-
nope.
Okay, thank you for
Nope.
the update.
Yeah.
And
All right,
for
so-
giving us the heads up last week on it.
Move on to new business. Number 2, approve plans and specifications and authorize advertising for the Madison Municipal Airport AIP 346-0029-013 for 2016. And again, I'll ask Chad or Morris, which one would like to address that?
I mentioned it a little bit just a few minutes ago. This is basically the approval to advertise for this project. It's the grading of the detention pond, the drainage improvements, and some revised wildlife fencing to fence in that area that we purchased about 3-4 years ago. So this would, and this was also shown on that CIP as the first step there. So that's what this would do.
I make a
But-
motion that we approve the plans and specifications, authorize advertising for the Madison Municipal Airport AIP 3-46-002-9-013-216. 2016.
Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have attached a peddler's license from American Exteriors LLC.
This is another company coming into town. It appears as if they're not going to do any sales. They're just going to come and talk to people. There's nothing, we can't stop them from doing it. And I will make a motion that we approve the peddler's license application for American Exteriors and require Jen to let the police department know when they're in our community.
They have been here, just FYI,
Yep.
they are one that we approve every year, so
Yep.
yes. But you
Second.
don't want to restrict it, if I made no restrictions as far as Tuesday through Saturday, we'll just let them report to
We
us
can.
as long as they check in with us.
We can.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, seeing no announcements, no executive session, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Cindy, you want me-
Sorry.